Have you ever looked at your own rating?
No.
Take out your phone right now. I bet I'm higher than you.
Okay.
Go to Uber,
Okay.
and the top left of your screen will give you your stars.
Okay, ready?
What is yours?
You go first.
No, you go first.
4.92.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm 4.77. Dang it.
You're a bad person.
Welcome into Scoop City. I'm the Athletic Senior NFL Insider, Dianna Rossini.
And I'm Chase Daniel. I played quarterback 14 years in the National Football League.
Chase, CJ Stroud is fire.
What?
That's how I want to start today's show.
I mean, I already knew that, but why do you say that?
Because I spent Monday watching him at practice and seeing it live in person during training camp. And
Ooh, how does it look live and in person compared to on film? Because on film, it's poetry in motion.
It's poetry in motion up close. So I'm here in Ohio. The Houston Texans are practicing in Ohio, probably about 35 minutes from where the Cleveland Browns practice, because they had a game, obviously the Hall of Fame game last week, and they are going to be playing their next preseason game in Pittsburgh. So they figured, you know what? Let's just park in Ohio and we'll practice all week out here and then drive over and face the Steelers. So I got to just watch him with this receiving core, and I can't wait to dive into it with you and just get some of your thoughts on some of the things that I observed and some of the conversations I was having. But things were all very smooth on the ground in terms of the type of practice they were running. Yet a completely different story back in New York, where the New York Giants and the Detroit Lions were full out brawling. I mean, every time I looked down at my phone, I'm like, what
Daniel
is happening?
Jones got in on it, and that was awesome.
So we're going to have our Giants beat reporter, Dan Duggan, join the show because I like fights. I know you're not supposed to like fights. I want all the details on what happened, who started it, and obviously some of the punishments that's going to come from this. You know, normally you hear coaches punishing guys. Did you ever play for a coach that hated fights?
Sean Payton actually liked them to a certain point. Like, you know, the person who hated it, and we only did it a few times, was Andy Reid. Like, he was just like, look, if you're going to fight, first of all, you're an idiot. Second of all, I'm just going to throw you out of practice and you're going to miss out on all your reps. And if you miss out on all your reps, guys who are trying to make the team, you're not going to make the team. So do not fight. Like, he would do it to, like, if Kelsey or like Mahomes got, like, he would send him off practice. He was very serious about that. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. It takes away from practice. I mean, you don't need it. Like, you don't need that.
Yeah. Well, also Pittsburgh, I feel like no matter what is happening lately, it has become the Justin Fields show. So I feel like from here on out until the start of the season, we need to have just the field report. Just what's the latest?
I like that. The Fields report.
The Fields report. You really think that's original? Just updates on what we're hearing about it and what we know about it. So let's definitely dive into that in a few, and then we'll wrap this whole thing up with some of our Olympic watching. I am not observing every event. I'm not like this big Olympian person.
Are you not American?
No, I am.
Come on.
I enjoy.
We're winning the race for medals. It's amazing.
I understand it. I'm just not a big Olympic person. I don't. It's not.
Get you that Peacock. Start watching it.
All right, I'll get on it. All right, but let's get to it. What I'm hearing around the league. It is so good to be down on the ground, taking in some of these training camps, beginning my summer tour here with the Houston Texans and taking in all the excitement, Chase, because there is some high expectations for this team, especially looking at what they did in this offseason in terms of building the roster, and to see it on the field, all the studs they have, it was definitely something cool to watch.
So because your boot's on the ground, I got to know, what stood out from you at practice on Monday?
The way CJ Stroud carries himself. You know, we know he has the confidence. We know that his teammates believe that he's the guy. But when you're watching him in and out of the huddle and you're watching him go through the drills and just absolutely nailing these throws, Stefon Diggs and CJ Stroud are going to be a problem. They are going to be a problem in this league based on what I was just able to see. And look, you just watch a few periods. You don't get all the action. I've only been with them one day. But I did some digging on how the transition has been with Stefon Diggs joining this very young receiving room. So let me just start with what I've been told about Diggs' presence. He's been a very vocal leader, very open to listening to the coaching staff about what they want from him. He's already built a really good relationship with CJ Stroud.
Why do you think that is, though? Why do you think that is? Because everyone talks about the Josh Allen stuff in Buffalo, and he's been there a month or two, and he's already. Is it just because he needs to fit in? He's on a 1-year deal. Like, wants to.
What do you mean
what's
the Josh
vibe
Allen
there?
stuff? What do you mean the Josh Allen stuff?
Him and Josh Allen in Buffalo, in my opinion, you didn't hear this like they were buddy like you're telling me right here with CJ Stroud.
Okay, so just watching Diggs operate from walking off the bus down this hill, because they were playing at a high school.
Yeah.
This is where they're practicing right now. He didn't look to the left or the right. He's just laser focused on what he wants to do. And then watching him going through all the different drills, just absolute pro the entire time. And I saw him talking to a lot of the receivers too, just guidance, mentoring a bit. And I was actually able to talk to him after practice about what this experience has been like in Houston. And look, it's summer. Everyone's optimistic. Change is good. I think for people, especially for a player like him who wants to be the best at what he does. And, we discussed what this organization has already done for him in terms of what he wants to do this next year. And I thought he was going to give me a little bit more sour of an answer from now no longer being in Buffalo, which that was a place I knew he did like. And he was a captain there. He was a big part of the Bills' success. And I just found him to be happier than I've ever seen him. And I've covered him since he was at Maryland. Rejuvenated and leaning into this role of being the guy in the room.
Yeah.
And helping guide these receivers who look to him. He was telling me, like, they grew up watching some of the stuff he's been able to achieve over the years. He's like, I don't feel old, but I'm the old guy,
Yeah.
And I also talked to the Houston Texans receiver coach after practice just to get his perspective of what the room is like. And I was surprised what he said. The first thing he said was professional. It's a very professional room. They're very serious. Right? So sometimes you hear some.
Was not expecting that. No receiver room I've ever been a part of has been serious. They've been goofballs in the best ways. It's interesting to hear you say serious because, Nico Collins has played a little bit. Tank Dell going into the second year. They got a really good Dalton Schultz. They got a really good receiving corps. So for an outsider like Diggs to come in from day one, it seems like, and to just make a huge impression, that's good news for Houston Texans fans.
And he's had a really good camp from what I was told, that he's just playing at a really high level as well. And he's healthy, and he's just really leaning into it. And how could you not when you have a quarterback like CJ Stroud? And I asked Diggs too. This is a guy who had success playing with Josh Allen, obviously. What it's been like getting to know CJ. And he was giving CJ credit without acting as if or saying or sharing that he's overconfident. He's like, he just knows he's good. He believes it. He was like, but he also shows it, right? He carries himself like he's the guy, and then he goes out and performs that way. And I just think having that type of person run the offense as young as CJ Stroud is, and with only a year under his belt, and he's already the man there, it just obviously speaks volumes to what he's bringing to that organization as a whole.
I mean, that goes into what I was saying. We said it a couple episodes ago, but I was on a vacation with Case Keenum, who was the backup to CJ Stroud. And he mentioned one of the first things he said to me, because I asked him about CJ Stroud, he said he's got the ability to be the best to ever do it. Take me a little bit more into the actual practice of CJ Stroud, because that's what I'm interested in. Not necessarily his pinpoint accuracy or his release. It's like cat-like reflexes.
And all good. All of that, check,
all of
check,
that,
right?
good. But I want to know all the things, like when they missed a route or a timing, would CJ Stroud go up to somebody and talk to them, or say, hey, if a running back missed protection, hey, go up and talk to him? Or do you see him talking to a lot of different people in that leadership aspect? That's what, when I'm watching a practice, that's what I want to see.
Yes, and that is what I was observing as well, because I had been told that he's a leader. And I watched a few situations just like that where the wrong route was run, and I watched him sort of almost like being animated in a positive way to show him what he should have been doing.
And what he wanted.
Correct. And then they would quickly regroup. And then just watching him watch Case Keenum and Davis Mills take their reps too. And being interested in what they were doing and watching the rest of the offense do that. It is very evident. You do not need to be at practice longer than 10 minutes, Chase, to know
he's the guy.
that CJ Stroud is the guy. And just the energy and the juice. And, Diggs and I were even just having a conversation about the Houston Texans organization as a whole. I had said to him, I don't remember the last time I was at a Texans practice, right?
No.
But everything has changed starting with CJ Stroud, which is why Diggs is so pumped to be part of something that's really shifting and changing, and probably a really good shot, especially with the moves they made this offseason. Diggs ripped through every single player on offense with me, and we just talked about each player. Tell
me what he thought. Tell me what he thought about their receiving core, because that in my opinion, Dalton Schultz, Nico Collins, Tank Dell. Just take me into what he said about Tank Dell and Nico Collins.
Yeah, it's funny because when he would get into the discussion of them, he was smiling bigger than I'm smiling right now talking about it, because you could tell they're almost like his little puppies. As the older guy,
he's 30. Diggs is 30.
He believes in them so much, and he made it pretty known they all bring a different type of skill set. And even talking to the receivers coach, Ben McDaniel, about it, they all had to work on different parts of their game in the offseason, their accuracy, their own speed, and each of them showed up to camp already improved and using that stuff that they worked on in the offseason to start and build on what they already built last year. Because that was another thing Diggs and I were talking about, is these young guys had so much success last year. So how are you coaching them to understand that, A, that doesn't happen all the time, and B, you can't change?
Yeah.
And he said, all I repeat is just be in the moment. You got to be where your feet are. You have to just be here. It's every day, the work. And that was my biggest takeaway from my conversation with Stefon, was how locked in he was about the work that goes into it, not anything else. And I know that's just a classic standard thought, but a player that's been doing it as long as he has, to have the hunger for it still, it just goes to show you that this team, I think this team can be really good. And he even said that. He's you have to see some of the stuff we're doing. It's so good.
Well, we'll see if the positive demeanor and attitude is there mid-season, when the targets are getting split between Stefon Diggs, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell. But let's take it to another receiving corps in Kansas City. They're practicing in St. Joseph, Missouri. And all I can think of when I see these clips on the internet of Patrick Mahomes throwing to receivers is speed. They got Marquise Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy. What are you hearing about those guys?
They are fast. That is what they are. They are fast, right? So we haven't talked about the Kansas City Chiefs in a while in terms of the speed. As soon as they traded Tyreek Hill, it pretty much fell off, right? They lost that deep threat option. And I feel like every single year, including the Super Bowls, that's always been the big story we chase down, of who's going to be the player that's going to step up to help elevate this offense. And when you and I talked to Patrick Mahomes on the red carpet, the ring ceremony just over 2 months ago, we discussed how this last season was the defense holding up the team, and now the offense has to figure a way to make it work. And so you're seeing in practice just bombs away all practice long. Now, do I think that means that they're going to be throwing the ball deep at a high volume? No, because we know in training camp, this is where they test the waters, right? This is where they're just trying to feel it out. But when I say to you that all I hear about the receiving group from the people at practice every day, that they're so fast, and that Rashee Rice is a monster, and he came ready this season.
Wow.
How do you think this offense can look with Patrick Mahomes under center now that it appears that all the right pieces are there?
Look, it's going to take some time for this offense to settle in, to be what it can be. And that's normal around the league. Your first game is never what your 6th or 7th or 8th game looks like as an offense. You are going to constantly evolve and change throughout the season until you find exactly what you want to be. What's interesting to me is, like you said, bombs are being thrown at Chiefs camp. And I think that just says a lot. And I think you can read into it because you go back to last year, Mahomes is less than 7 yards an attempt or 8 yards an attempt, which is the lowest he was in his career. He's got one of the lowest passing yards, the least amount of touchdowns, the least amount of all those, and they still won a Super Bowl. So I think that was the issue last year. I know that was the issue last year was the receiving corps, right? A lot of drops, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore. Then you go fast forward this year, they land Hollywood Brown. They draft Xavier Worthy in the first round, speed demon, set the combine record for fastest 40 time ever. The dude was flying. And then Rashee Rice in year 2 at SMU. I really do think that it is a change of mindset. And to get back to what they used to be 2 years ago, 3 years ago with Tyreek Hill, where that's where Mahomes is the best. We are going to stretch the field vertically to set up all the RPO, which is a run pass option, all the underneath stuff to Travis Kelce, their run game, because Big Red, Andy Reid, he loves to run the football. So what's the best way to run the football? Stretch it vertically, get people in too high safety looks. So I think it is a change in attitude for them saying, we are going to throw the ball deep. NFL, you better watch out. We are going to get back to be doing what we're doing, and that's a scary thought for the rest of the league.
I'll wrap up the receiving core in Kansas City with this. I will read the text I got from someone on the ground. Rashee looks like a monster. He looks faster and more explosive than last year. He came in with experience this year and full knowledge of the offense, which is why he's playing faster and he's more conditioned. Marquise as well has blended in very nicely with Patrick, right? So wow. You're hearing these weapons that we haven't heard of. There was hope, as you pointed to. And now it sounds like this Chiefs team, which the biggest storyline going into the season will be, can they three-peat? And it appears that what we would have called their weakest part of their game is now
scary.
It's scary.
They're strong.
Scary.
Their strong suit. All right. Ding, 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 ding. The Fields Report. Take us to Pittsburgh. Please tell me. I'm not even going to ask you, but please tell me that Justin Fields truly has a chance to win this job, because everything I'm hearing out of Latrobe is that he is balling while Russell Wilson is on almost 2 weeks with a calf injury, hasn't practiced fully.
He absolutely has an opportunity to win the quarterback competition. He absolutely does. It's some of it right now is because we have not seen Russell Wilson. All right. So I can tell you that the Steelers want to see Wilson on the field healthy when he gets back here before they would make any decision. And, I had some conversations with people even outside Pittsburgh, Chase, about the position Tomlin is in. If he, for whatever reason, decides he wants to stick with Russell Wilson, but Justin's clearly the better player. How does that work in a locker room? Have you ever been part of a team where the coach played let's just say, it wouldn't be in this case, but a veteran, high-paid veteran, not Russell, but over perhaps the better player?
I haven't been in a situation like that ever, and to be
Because
honest,
it doesn't work. Because you can't do it.
To be honest with you, those coaches that have done that are probably fired. It doesn't work. Your locker room will find you out. And I do think, look, Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season in his career. He's going to play the best guy. And so when you talk about, you specifically, because I've heard it from you first, the pole position, which I hate. I've told you that multiple times. That just tells me that Russell gets to trot out there on the first day of practice whenever he is with the ones. That doesn't tell me anything else. That doesn't tell me he's won the job. That doesn't tell me that they're not in a competition. And hearing Mike Tomlin speak on multiple different video podcasts and stuff like that, it's getting interesting, because you can see him and Arthur Smith are sort of salivating at the mouth, thinking this is what an offense could look like with Justin Fields, almost back to the Cordell Stewart / days, but Justin Fields a little bit of a better thrower. You got to protect himself as a runner, and Cordell Stewart is a legend there, in my opinion. But I'm just saying, it really draws comparisons to Cordell Stewart days.
Yeah, well, look, Tomlin is a pro when it comes to the media, so I don't think he's going to give much more than what we've seen the last few days. We're going to be talking to him soon, so I look forward to just asking him straight up, like, come on, name a starter right now. Name it up, Scoop City. So many questions about Daniel Jones, Chase. You've been trying to figure out, is he good? Is he bad? Is he great? Does he stink? Lucky for us, we have our Giants beat reporter, Dan Duggan, joining Scoop City right now. Dan, before we even get into quarterback play, what happened at practice on Monday? Can you just give me your version of what you saw from the sideline? Because on social media, this looked like a brawl.
Yeah, no, it was. That's exactly what it was. And it's funny because you get in a rhythm as a reporter. When you're covering practice, it's like, all right, completion, I jot it down, you start looking back at the line of scrimmage. I have to retrain myself. You got to watch all the way through the play because there's an extra thud and an extra thud, and then someone pokes a ball out, and all of a sudden people's helmets are flying off and punches are get throwing. So, no, it was the most intense practice I've ever covered. I've been covering the Giants. It's my 9th training camp, and it was intense, like, from the get-go. I was covering the offense today, and I kind of had FOMO because on the other field, the second play, there was a fight with Giants defense versus the Lions offense. And again, not one of these like baseball things where the bench is empty and everyone's looking for someone to like hold on to. Like guys were throwing punches from like behind the scrum and stuff. So it set the tone right out of the gates. And there was no other really big fights, but like literally by the end of practice, almost every play was ending up with like benches emptying and guys, jostling. So no, it was really intense. And it's funny because these two teams had a joint practice last year in Detroit, and the Lions like just punched the Giants in the mouth from the get-go. And the first day was a disaster for the Giants. So there's no way that they were going to let that happen again. I'm convinced Brian Daboll, like whatever Super Bowl pregame speech he has like in this bag, he took it out today because he just could not let that happen to his team again. And you could tell they came and matched because the Lions, we know, are a physical, intense team. And the Giants met them punch for punch quite literally today.
I saw a few videos specifically of Daniel Jones getting right in the middle of the scrum. And what it looks like I saw, and you please tell me because you were covering offense, it looks to me that a defensive lineman was like laying on top of an offensive lineman and was like shaking him like Royal Rumble style, just like hitting him. And then Daniel Jones literally looks, to me on the video, he just gets up and spears the defensive lineman and then a scuffle ensues. Is that correct? Like, you got to love to see Daniel Jones sticking up for the offensive line.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty accurate breakdown because, center Greg Van Roten somehow ended up on a bottom of a mini pile behind the play, though. So it wasn't a situation where everyone else's attention was there, but obviously Daniel's behind the play. So Van Roten ended up in the unenviable position of like trying to start a fight from his back, and obviously that doesn't go well when it's like a 300-pound guy like hovering over you. So Jones, to his credit, he didn't hesitate. He jumped in and like said he gave the guy a good shove. It was not some little like I'm just trying to interrupt here. He actually pushed the defensive lineman, and then the Giants coaches quickly ushered him out of there. And it's one thing with Daniel Jones, you never have to question his toughness or anything like that. There was a big inter-squad brawl, I want to say 2 years ago, and Jones was in the middle of that. And again, everyone's like, what are you doing? But in the same vein, it's like you kind of like that's your quarterback's instincts, and I'm going to have my guys back. And again, it wasn't a situation where like he didn't run 30 yards. He was kind of the next closest teammate, so he just did what he felt like he needed to do, and thankfully he came out unscathed.
What do you think Daboll's tone was with the team after that? I mean, you think he's the pro fighting, or you think nobody, Chase and I talked about this earlier, like no coach wants the fighting because it distracts and you could get hurt. You have your starting quarterback out there. But knowing that the Giants are looking for some juice this season, I don't think it's a terrible thing. What do you think? How do you think Brian sees it?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's a fine line. It's probably one of those like, don't ever do it again, as he like slaps the guy in the ass because he's happy that they did it today. Like, I don't think you want tomorrow to come out and be the same level of extracurriculars. I think you want it to be intense again, but that's why it's funny with these joint practices with the 2 days, because now everyone's going to have time to be on social media and see all these clips, and guys are going to be hearing about, oh, you got punked and this and that. So it'd be interesting to see how they respond tomorrow. I would think that Daboll's happy with how today went, that it crossed the line a few times, but it wasn't like one of those full-on, like you can't even function, you can't have practice. I think tomorrow you probably want to see a little bit more execution and not have every single play be interrupted by the entire bench is emptying. I think in his heart of hearts, he definitely is not upset by how today went. But I would think tomorrow, both coaches probably meet. They get along well, him and Dan Campbell. Probably say, let's try to rein that in a little bit. But I think for day one, they're probably both quietly happy with how it unfolded.
So on Hard Knocks, Dan, we saw the Giants openly flirting with quarterbacks from this draft class. They end up not picking. They end up sticking with Daniel Jones. Joe Shane emphatically said many times, like, he's our guy. We just got to protect him. How has Daniel Jones looked? And he even openly said, and I thought this was really cool, like, he didn't love how Hard Knocks portrayed the situation, right? And so you got to imagine there's a fire within him. Has he looked well? You said you were charting all the passes. How has he looked?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've also learned, this is year 6, I try not to overreact too much to Daniel Jones practice to practice. I mean, we have a sample size now, but I'm kind of scarred by the fact that last year during camp, I was like, oh my goodness, this offense looks amazing. Like, Darren Waller is unstoppable. Year 2 with Dable, Jones is just like carving everybody up. He played 1 series in the preseason, marched right down the field, and I was like, this offense is going to be really good. And then, the lights turned on and we saw it was 40-0 before he blinked, and we know how it went from there. So I'm at the same time with, he hasn't looked amazing this camp, but I'm trying to like rein it back in on both ends of the spectrum. You don't want to overreact negatively or positively. Always have to keep in mind, he was coming off a major surgery.
Yeah.
The first couple of practices was his first time doing 11-on-11. There's some rust involved. I will say the thing that if you're looking for something to be encouraged by, he is pushing the ball down the field, because I think that's been one of the knocks on him. He's not that he can't do it, it's that he just hasn't pulled the trigger enough in his career. Now you have Malik Neighbors, you have Jalen Hyatt, you have Darius Slayton. Like, this offense has to push the ball down the field. Like, it's not, they don't have Saquon Barkley to rely on anymore. If they're going to score points, it's because they're going to have 50-yard touchdown passes every now and then to Neighbors and Hyatt. And I think he's at least been willing to pull the trigger. Now, again, the results haven't always been pretty. I mean, Neighbors, mostly they have been, because he's just been like a showstopper right out of the gates. But yeah, I think that's the thing you're encouraged by. But again, I've just, I think you preface it like, am I going to answer the question, is Daniel Jones good, bad? Like, I can't give you that answer, because I mean, it's I've kind of seen all sides of him, and it's just like, it's really going to depend on what happens between the lines when the live pass rush is there and in game settings.
So, okay, so you want to answer that. I mean, I get what you're saying, because camp's up and down, but is he the unquestioned starter? Because Drew Lock, they signed him to a really good deal. Is he the unquestioned starter? Is it any type of a competition? What are your senses on the ground there?
No, he is unquestionably the starter. I mean, Locke has not taken a single first-team rep in camp. They're committed to Jones. Again, they did the whole dance with the quarterbacks. Once they didn't take one, it's going to be Jones' show until basically he either proves he can't do it. Obviously, hope he doesn't get hurt again. But yeah, there's been no signs that they want to get Locke in there. And Locke, honestly, I mean, he's with the twos. He hasn't looked great. Like, it isn't like he's demanding, like, you got to give this guy a shot. So I think it's very clearly Daniel Jones is 1 and Drew Lock is 2.
Dan, you brought up Saquon Barkley. We spoke with him a few weeks ago, and one of the things that he brought up was just how good Daniel Jones is. And I pushed back on him and said, well, okay, I don't see it. I have a hard time making a decision. I understand the skill set that he has. I understand why there's people who believe, but I just don't think the majority of the league thinks of Daniel Jones as being some really good quarterback. And he was defiant about how good Daniel Jones was. And then we started to talk about protection and getting into the offensive line. Had so much of this offense really couldn't develop because the offensive line has struggled. Have you seen any improvement? Have you seen anything that's going to tell you that maybe this is the year they solve that problem?
I know they tried to solve that problem. They've gone the draft route, and it looks like they went 0 for 3 in that 2022 draft. Obviously, Evan Neal still can't get on the field, the 7th pick of that draft. Josh Azudu was a 3rd-round pick. He's a backup, and then Marcus McKeithen was a 5th-round pick. He's basically probably going to get cut in a couple of weeks. So that hurts. Come out of the gates there. And then last year, I think they thought, okay, well, we can patch it together. And then this year they said, okay, we have to invest in it, because the first 2 years it wasn't pretty. So they went out and spent some money on John Runyon. They went out and got Jermaine Illuminor. And it was funny, they were going to put Illuminor at left guard, which to me was like, I mean, he's never really done that at a high level. We've seen him play well at right tackle the last 2 years. So, I mean, the Neal situation is unfortunate, but I think it might have actually helped them, because I think I would feel more comfortable with Illuminor at right tackle than Evan Neal. So the injury kind of forced their hand to make that change. But it's not a great sign when you're a week into camp and you're signing Greg Van Roten off the coach. I mean, granted, it's better to be doing it now, because they were doing it in like week 6 last year with Justin Pugh. So they're a little ahead of the game. But John Michael Schmitz, their 2nd-round center from a year ago, he's been out for like 6 or 7 straight practices with a shoulder injury. No real sign on when he'll be back. Like, Dable keeps saying it's not long-term, but he's going to miss all of this week. So you're talking at least 2 weeks before he's back. And this is valuable time for him to get these reps. So Like Andrew Thomas, like they're probably saying their prayers every night that he stays healthy, because when he got hurt last year, everything went to hell. I think you feel good about Runyon, good solid, league average at worst left guard. Like I said, center's kind of a question mark. It's either Schmitz or Van Roten's been playing there now. They got Aaron Stinney, who's just kind of the definition of a journeyman at right guard. That's where Van Roten presumably will kick out when Schmitz gets back, and Illuminor at right tackle. So that isn't the Detroit Lions offensive line for what I just saw today, but it should be. I mean, last year was like a disaster. It should at least be competent, and that at least gives Jones a chance.
Yeah, and the fact that you're seeing that Lions O-line to compare, it's not going to help the cause here of this conversation.
Yeah, they're the best in the National Football League.
Right.
But there is a bright spot on this offense, and that's the rookie Malik Neighbors. What have you seen from him that's already impressed you? What's one thing that stood out?
I mean, he's just been awesome. I can't. That's such a deep football breakdown there. But no, guys have star power. When I came on the beat in 2016, Odell was already Odell, but still watching him in practice, you're like, oh my god, this guy just moves different. Everything looks easy for him, and we all see the one-handed catches. But even just, he's always open. He's always making big plays. And this is certainly the closest thing I've ever seen to in a practice setting. The Giants wide receivers, post Odell, really have not been anywhere near this caliber. But no, he is just he's the total package. You want to throw it to him underneath, and he runs after the catch. Intermediate stuff, he's a great route runner. The deep ball, I mean, again, that's the thing that I think if anything is going to sort of just open up this offense, it's the fact that he is such a dangerous guy down the field. And, again, Jones is pulling the trigger. I think they're building up that chemistry. There was a great catch today that, they ruled him out of bounds. They had the real refs here, so I guess I got to defer to them. But they would have been up to the replay booth. It was pretty close, but he just makes these amazing contorting deep catches consistently. That's the thing. I just would say he's the closest thing I've seen to Odell, and that's high praise, because Odell in his career, people might forget, obviously he hasn't been that way since the injuries have caught up to him, but was just electric every time he touched the field, and that's the same type of presence Neighbors brings.
I believe for sure that the Giants drafted the best receiver in the draft in Malik Neighbors, even over Marvin Harrison Jr. Is he going to be the number one from day one? You see sometimes with these rookie receivers coming in and picking up a new offense, has he struggled with that? Will he be Daniel Jones's number one?
Yeah, I mean, he'll be the number one by a long shot. I mean, he might not lead the team in targets because Wan'Dale Robinson is going to be the slot merchant, and they're probably going to feed him, swing passes, and it's third and long, and they'll dump it to him. But in terms of who's the number one receiver, unquestionably. I mean, he's sometimes they make rookies earn the starting spot.
Yeah.
He's been with the starters from day one. He gets the most targets, or at least again, Wan'Dale might get more targets, but in terms of big plays and being a featured part of the offense. As far as learning the offense, he's admitted it's complicated, but they clearly are going out of the way to feature him. They move him around. It's not like they're just keeping it simple. They're kind of challenging him. But he said Dable will FaceTime him just randomly and go over a play and stuff like that. So Dable is clearly invested. This is you saw Hard Knock. Dable kept gushing every time. Oh, this guy's a dog. He's a dog. This is his Stefon Diggs, let's say, coming from Buffalo. This is the guy he knows can unlock his offense. So he's going to do everything he can to make that happen. So I think he's going to really tailor things to Neighbors and just try to, maximize his skill set.
You said it's Dayball's offense. Mike Kafka was sort of the forgotten man in Hard Knocks. And who's calling I want to know who's calling the offense this year. Are they working together? Is it Dayball? It just doesn't seem that Kafka has the sort of juice he had maybe last year.
Oh no, for sure. It's it's Dayball's offense, and he's calling the plays. I mean, there's times where you kind of see Kafka at practice, he's kind of just standing there because the quarterback coach with the quarterbacks, the O-line coach with the O-line,
Yeah.
He's just kind of there. But it's not just obviously Dayball's calling the plays during practice. He's running the offensive meetings. He's spending a lot of his time with the offense, and it's funny because when he got hired, obviously he had been a play caller. And they said they don't want him to do that. Obviously, a lot of coaches do it. They didn't want him to do it. He was going to be the CEO, let Kafka call the offense. Wink Martindale was going to call the defense. When you have an offensive season like they had last year, and not that Daboll's necessarily in the hot seat, but it's warming up, I think it's understandable. He said, I'm going to take the reins here. I'm going to do what got me this job. I mean, he got this job because of the performance of the Bills' offense with him calling the shots. So he took that back, and it's completely his show. I think he's going to sink or swim with him being the one calling the shots.
Exactly. It's always the last play, right? I'm just going to take this thing over, and if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down my own way and do it the way I want to do it. If that turns out to be his future. Before we let you go, since we're talking Daboll, the chatter is how thin he is. In person, is it that significant? Because the pictures that we've been seeing that have been floating around, he's dropped a lot of weight.
No, it's jarring. Like you have to do a double take sometimes when you look out there. He's good for him. He says
it's yoga, and Dan, I walk,
Pilates. He said.
I walk by the studio that he works out in because he shouted it out once, and I
Yeah.
live in that area, and I am so tempted to walk in there and just be like, so how often does Brian Dable really come in here?
Yeah, you have to get there early. He said he would go at like 5 a.m. probably on his way
gosh.
into the office. I don't know, but he's guarded about it because I think he's someone who's kind of ridden the roller coaster a little bit. And Dan Campbell was funny. He was saying that they were together in Miami, maybe like 2011, I want to say. Dable's the OC, Campbell's the tight ends coach. Campbell said like Dable looked like this then, and then within 2 months, and he literally made it sound like poof. Like it was like when he lets it go, he lets it go, and when he wants to rein it in, he reins it in. So so hopefully for Dable's sake, he's able to maintain this. But it's a striking difference from just a couple of months ago.
Well, as you guys all know, any head coach's adventure during the season in terms of their health and overall fitness, it usually goes down the drain. It just does, no matter how.
I don't know.
So
hard.
either way, we should probably excuse it this season for them, as we know that they have their challenges. But Dan, I think you gave Giants fans listening some optimism. Not 100% on the offensive line, but we'll continue to see the rest of Daniel Jones' camp and see if this offense can finally get to the place where we know Brian Dable wants it to be. So thanks so much for joining us and giving us the play-by-play on the big brawls today.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys.
So while training camp is in full swing and we're getting action all over the league right now, the one race that everyone was talking about over the weekend was the men's 100-meter race. Chase, what'd you think of it?
Well, Noah Lyles just became a bona fide superstar, running the race in 9.79 seconds, the fastest man in the world this year. And what's interesting is when you actually watch the replay of the video of the run, which only lasts less than 10 seconds, but I watched it multiple times, Noah actually stumbles out of the block. His start is not good. He's like in 6th or 7th place when he goes, and then he catches up to Jamaica, who was in the lead. And if you look at the photo finish, there's like 6 guys that could be the winner. And I didn't know this, but the guy from Jamaica, his right foot, is crossing the finish line first. Noah Lyles' torso, which the Olympics define as from the bottom of your neck to your belly button. That's what they define the torso. The torso was across the line first. I didn't know that. So everyone, including the Jamaican man who ran, thought he won, including the announcer for NBC who called the race. They thought he won, and I didn't know that. So I learned something new. So it was electric, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was one of the best Olympic events I've ever seen, only because all the different angles that they had, and obviously to see how it ended, where Jamaica thinks they win, USA gets the gold, all the emotions. It was a roller coaster of feelings for everybody. I was just thinking, these runners are taught and trained. How did they not know to lean in that way?
Yeah.
Is it because they're always so ahead and always winning? They never have to win.
Yeah, exactly. They're so far ahead. He's like, but I remember them telling me, like, when I was in high school track, when I was running, I ran the 4x100, by the way. They said, hey, when you're finishing, just, puff the chest out a little bit.
I can't believe you even flirt with high school sports, because I would love to open up my can of high school glory days. It's the only place I feel like I'm even with you. But the other thing the other moment that I loved watching was just Scotty Scheffler, just knowing what he had been through this past season, and he just had his first baby and his wife and the tears, like I'm not the biggest Olympic person, but the emotion of it it's out of this world, especially watching him. Because he doesn't show a lot of emotion. That's what makes him so great as a golfer, is he's so even keeled. So to see him open up just a little bit in probably one of the greatest moments of his life.
Scotty's year has been nothing short of fantastic. Won multiple tournaments, won a major or two, won Olympic gold, went to jail. But it's like all those things. So I loved watching that. The sport that I didn't even know existed, I didn't know it was an Olympic sport, was kayak cross. There's like 4 or 5 guys in like little baby kayaks, and they're going down this like man-made rapid river. They're having to like do barrel rolls. They're having to do 360s. They're having to touch stuff with their paddles. And oh, by the way, you can like hit the other guy's boat with the paddle. I thought it was fantastic. It was wild watching it. That was probably my favorite sport I've seen so far, without a doubt.
Yeah, you like it because it was weird. It's different. And I'm not
So
even.
different.
Do you think you could do it?
No. Heck.
Yeah.
Heck
I
no.
thought it looked like an American Gladiators game. You know,
It did.
It looked like jousting.
Yes, jousting. Yes. You could
Yeah.
joust someone else. It's like, get out of here.
Who knew that people commit their entire lives to these sports that we can't even comprehend? But the sport that we
That's why the
can
Olympics is amazing.
comprehend. All right, I need to improve my attitude about the Olympics. Maybe I have some deep rooted issue because I could never make it. Maybe that's what it is. We'll talk about that in our therapy session offline. But the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles is going to have the sport that we definitely are going to be watching, which is flag football, which I can't wait to check that out. So real quick before we go, your quarterback, your receiver, and your tight end, your starters.
It's easy.
Go.
It's easy. It's all Chiefs players, all Chiefs or former Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and you got to give me Travis Kelce, Mr. Taylor Swift with the shimmy, shimmy, shake. That's what makes football, flag football in particular, so good. You got to have the shimmy.
See, when I think shimmy, I think Lamar Jackson. And this isn't me doubting Patrick Mahomes. I just think he'll be so elusive just getting in and out. Then I'll snag A.J. Brown because I want a big guy.
Moss.
Exactly. I want a big boy out there. Tight end, I'll throw Travis in there because
It's Travis.
no, actually, I actually want to take that back.
Oh.
I think I want to take that back because Travis is getting older. 2028.
Yeah.
Think about it now. He'll probably be married with 2 kids by then.
Oh, to who?
I don't want to play this game of do I think they're going to get married. I don't want to do that. I don't want this show
So
to be
who's
about that.
okay? But you just said to Taylor Swift.
This is not inside information. I do not want to put this out.
Are you an insider?
I'm not an insider in Hollywood. No. I'm
Who's
gonna
your
pass
tight
on that.
end?
I'm thinking age now, and I'm very, very concerned.
The Dallas Cowboys said, and Jake Ferguson was my number 2. I love that guy.
Why?
Very, very smart. Very, very headsy. Very shifty. He's awesome.
Who's the coach?
Why?
Who's the coach?
I don't care who the coach is. Oh, by the way, did you know I'll be the coach? I'm up here. I'm like just a mile away or an hour and a half away. Did you know that you said on our first episode you hate lists? We're a no list show.
Oh my God, I just
made
did
you
it.
Give a list.
I just did it. See, this is why I didn't like this because I was giving a list. I don't like lists.
You can
Next week
barely
on
give one.
Scoop City, no lists. That's what we're going to do. Chase, I'm going to get out of here. You get out of here. I will see you on Friday.
Bye, guys. Tag me next time.
See you next time. Thanks for tuning into Scoop City. If you want to hear more, make sure you like and subscribe. We drop our new episodes every Tuesday and Friday.